Hello everybody, welcome to another USACO Bronze question. My name is Jimmy Ong. I am a course developer and instructor at Coding Math Academy. And the question we're taking a look at today is going to be Bucket Brigade from the 2019 Open Contest. So go ahead and pause the video and read the question. There will also be a link to the question in the description below. Alright, welcome back. So don't let the details of that question confuse you. Let's go ahead and break it down to the most simplest subproblem we can. What happens if the barn and the lake are in one straight line? When this is the case, the solution is pretty simple. All we need to do is figure out the distance between the barn and the lake. So from this simplest subproblem, we can start thinking about some things. So to figure out the answer to this problem, we need to figure out the distance between the barn and the lake. And we can do that by just finding the distance between the coordinates. So you can see here, when we actually do the math and solve it, we get an answer of 6. However, we actually don't need 6 cows, we only need 5 cows in between the barn and the lake. The reason why this number is off by 1 is because we don't need to count the endpoints at all. So actually the answer here would be 5. We would need 5 cows to build that bucket brigade. So let's take another look at a similar question. This time, let's make it a little bit more complex by adding a rock into it. So in this case, we can actually see that the rock makes absolutely no difference at all. In fact, most places you place the rock won't make a difference. However, the one and only place where the rock would make a difference is if the rock were directly in between the barn and the lake. So you can actually think about this as a special case, the exception to the rule rather than the rule itself. So the special case we need to be concerned about is when the barn, the rock, and the lake all share one coordinate together. That tells us that the rock is directly in between the barn and the lake. Let's see how many cows it takes this time. So before it took 5 to go directly from the barn to the lake. This time there's a rock in the center, so we need to go around it. So regardless of where the rock is in between the barn and the lake, it'll only take another 2 extra cows to fill that distance. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into the code. So my buckets.in file, I have the sample input. And let's start the problem the same way we always start problems, by reading in the data. So if you use a f.readLine.splitLines, that'll create a list of all the lines without the new line character. So it kind of strips the string for us already. And you can see here is the grid. Let's go ahead and throw it into a function. Alright, so now that we actually have the data, let's start working to process that data. So what I'm going to do here is use a double nested for loop for I and for j. The reason why it's hard-coded to be 10 is because the grid is only 10 lines long, and that's a given. So what I want to do here is go through each row, through each element, and check to see if that element is a B, an R, or an L. So if the element is a B, R, or L, what I want to do then is just save those coordinates to use later on. Here I'm adding 1 to I and J just to kind of make it match up with the coordinate system rather than having it start at 0. However, at the end of the day, if you do the math and programming correctly, it should end up being the same distance. Great, so now we have the coordinates of B, R, and L. Or we will in about 15 seconds. Do you guys see the mistake? Aha. Right, so now we have the coordinates of B, R, and L. Our next step is just figure out the distances between all 3 points. So figuring out the distance between all 3 points will help us put together the total distance. And recall that the first number refers to I and the second number refers to J. So when I'm doing B0 and R0, I'm checking to see the distance between the I of B and the I of R. So this is just the distance between 2 points, nothing crazy here. And I'll do the same for the other pairs. Alright, so now we have all the puzzle pieces we need, but we still need to put everything together and get a working solution. The last little bit we'll need is to handle the special case. And remember, the special case is when the rock is directly between the barn and the lake. For most placements of the rock, it's not really going to affect the distance between the barn and the lake. There's only that one special case if it's directly in between the two. So here's how we'll do it. Using an if statement, I'll check to see if the barn and the lake are in one straight line, so if they share the same I or the same J. Furthermore, I need to check to see if the rock is directly in between the two places. I can do that by checking the distance. See, if the distance between the barn and the lake is equal to the distance from the barn to the rock, plus the rock to the lake, that means that the rock is somewhere between the barn and the lake. If it helps, you can kind of think about it like a number line. So if that is the case, here's what we'll do. We're going to take the distance of the barn to the lake and add 1 to it. So the reason why we add 1, recall back to the beginning of the video when we did the grid and we found the distance between 2 points. That distance actually is not the final answer. So distance BL is not the final answer because we need to subtract 1 to take care of the endpoints. Otherwise, if the rock is not directly between the barn and the lake, we'll subtract 1 from distance BL for the exact reason we just talked about. If you're a little confused about why we're adding 1 to distance BL in the first case, think about why we're subtracting 1 from distance BL in the other case. The reason is because distance BL is not the final answer. We need to do a little bit more to get the final answer. And finally, the last thing we need to do is just write to file. Alrighty, this has been another USACO bronze question with Jimmy Ong. Check out my resume and blog in the description below. Thank you for watching.